Okay, so in our previous class we talked about binary trees. Uh, all that we covered till now was different traversal techniques, different ways of reconstructing a binary tree, checking for different binary tree properties like isomorphism, quasi-isomorphism, similarity, sameness. Uh, so from today's class onwards, we'll move on to binary search trees, the more interesting variant of a binary tree. We won't delve too much on the basic operations. I don't think it's very useful from an interview perspective, but we'll still talk about it at a surface level so that we don't miss out on anything. So BSTs have a very simple rule, right? What qualifies a binary tree to become a binary search tree? What is the binary search tree property?
The elements to the left is lesser to the root node, and the element to the right is greater than the root.
Okay. So if this is my root node, all elements on this side must be less than x, and all elements on this side should be greater than x. What if they're equal? Where does that go?
You can put it like left or right, it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. So we don't care. It can either be on left or right, but as long as we stick to it. So let's just say that if it's equal, we'll just put it as a left gate. So that is a binary search tree property, and this holds for every node of a binary search tree, not just for the root node. How are binary search trees different than heaps?
In heaps, the root node is like you have that min heap and max heap. So root node is greater than both the children or lesser than the children.
Okay.
But in between case, like the root is lesser than lesser than the right child, greater than the left child.
Okay. And there's another property of binary search trees. Just with this property, you can guaranteely say that there's a relationship between two kids. You can say that the left kid is always lesser than the right kid, right? Because of this property, you can always establish a relationship between both the kids, and you can say that the left child is always lesser than the right child. However, with heaps, there is no such property you can establish between kids. It just says that the parent, in case of a min heap, is always the minimal element, and in case of max heap, the parent is always the maximum element. But you cannot conclude anything about the relationship that exists between the kids. This was one of the questions they asked me in a Yahoo internship question, and I kind of had a brain freeze, and I couldn't quite differentiate between this and that. So just so that you're aware, it's not the same as heaps. There's some very nice properties to binary search trees. What happens if I do an in-order traversal on a binary search tree?
You get in ascending order.
Ascending order. Okay, nice. So if I have a binary search tree like this, so the good property of binary search tree is just the representation itself doesn't really give you a hint that numbers are sorted, but it kind of enforces an order in a certain way when you do an in-order traversal, and that's a good thing. It does not seemingly appear to be sorted, but it has that nice property. So in-order traversal, like does the left root, right, so it will be 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, which is sorted order. So if you want to perform an operation where you want to preserve the sorted order and you update your data set frequently, then your binary search tree is an excellent choice, because insertion and deletion is very simple, and anytime you want your elements in a sorted order, all you need to do is do an in-order traversal which runs in linear time. Let's say you are not using a binary search tree and your task was such that at any point in time you will be asked to give the sorted order of all the elements you have seen so far, and you keep updating a lot. So every 1 minute there's a new number that comes in, so you have to fit that in the correct order, in the sorted order. If you were not allowed to use binary search trees, what would be your other options?
Like you said, you can use heaps then.
You can use heaps. So if I use a heap, so you said option 1 would be to use a heap. What is the insertion time? So there are two operations here, insertion and fetch me elements in sorted order, right? So what would be the time complexity to insert an element in a heap?
So we'll be inserting at the end of the tree. So you might want to
Sort and insertion, right? We have two things. So if I use a heap, my insertion time is what? Log n. What is my sort? Give me the sorted numbers I've seen so far time.
And log n.
Correct. Okay, what are my other options? What else can I use? Your task is that I keep giving you integers one after the other. Let's say every integer comes every 1 minute. At any point in time I can stop and I ask you, give me all the elements that you have seen so far in a sorted order. Okay? It is up to you whether you want to store it in a sorted order, you don't want to store it, but just fetch me the sorted order at the time of asking. And let's pretend you are not allowed to use binary search trees. So what are your other options? Heap is one. What else?
You could use queues, like priority queues kind of thing.
So priority queues are actually implemented via heaps. So because priority queues, the min and max basically represents the priority that way. So your time complexity would still be this. These are priority queues as well. What else you got? What if you use a traditional array? I just use a normal array.
But the array size is like fixed, right? So you can't be expanding every time.
Okay, so this is a dynamic array. So if I were to use a dynamic array, so what would be this and this?
Sort as in you have to give the whole element, like the next sorted element.
You have to give me all the elements that you have seen so far in a sorted order. What would you do if you had a dynamic array? And when I say dynamic array, it means don't worry about array resizing. How long would insertion take and how long would sort take?
Insertion would take like constant type.
So it depends. So if you want to just insert it at the very end, it takes constant time. If you want to insert this element in the correct position in an array, then it is not constant, right?
No, like if you insert at constant time, and then you can be performing a good sorting algorithm like merge sort, or which is the other sort?
Okay, quick sort, merge sort.
Quick sort, and then you can, based on the complexity, it could be there.
Okay, this makes sense. These time complexities hold good if I just insert the element at the very first, or with the very, no, not at the very first, sorry, at the very last position, and then I sort the array at runtime whenever the query is being asked. Let's say that I have to insert the element at the correct position. So if I somehow insert this element in the correct position in an array, then the answer to sort would be just linear time, right? All I have to do is to just spit out the contents of the array one by one, and that will give me the answer. So see how we have gone from n log n to n time to answer the sorted query, but then my insertion I have to compromise on that, because I just can't blindly insert it at the end. So what would be the complexity to insert an element in the correct position? So think of it this way: there is 2, 4, 12, 50. Let's say it's already sorted, and 10 comes. So 10 should go here, right? But 12 is already there. So what you have to do is to basically move 12 to 50th position, 50th to the next position, and then insert 10, right? So essentially what you're doing is that for every element you are shifting 1 to the right. And worst case, if the element to be inserted is here, let's say you are inserting 1, you have to shift every element to the right, and that takes n square time, right? For every element I am performing a shift operation. So this is, we got a good time for the answer to sort, but our insertion took a toss. What other options do I have other than dynamic array? Which other data structure would be good to answer these queries?
You could use a list also.
Perfect. Linked lists. Okay. What is the time complexity for both of these?
Insertion could be done at theta of n.
Okay.
Sorting again would be theta of n, because it's the same like dynamic array.
Correct. Because insertion is very simple in a linked list, I don't have to shift. I just have to create a new node, make the previous node point to the new node, and the new node point to the next node of the original list. So insertion is very simple. Answer to sorting is also very simple, because I'm already storing the list in a sorted fashion. So anytime someone asks me what is the sorted order, all I need is to read the contents of the linked list. Finally, we come to binary search trees. What is the time complexity to insert and to answer this question? Now you are allowed to use BSTs.
Insert is login.
Insertion is login, okay. And search, sorry, the sort answer?
Sort is theta of n, because you're going to all nodes.
Yeah, theta of n, because I do an in-order traversal. Well, this one is basically iffy. It is not guaranteed to be log of n.
Okay, not a complete binary tree.
Correct. Binary search trees are not necessarily complete or balanced. So let's say the elements I am giving you is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 comes and that gets inserted as a root. 2 comes, 2 is greater than 1, so it becomes the right side. Then 3 comes, it's greater than 1, greater than 2, becomes the right side. Then 4 comes, greater than 1, 2 and 3 becomes the right side of 3. So now I have a skewed binary tree which goes like this. So at every insertion, my level increases by 1, which is bad. We don't want our binary search tree to go deep. We want it to be wide but not deep. So when it becomes like this, the insertion time is just has become a linked list now, right? It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, just one of only the right child gets populated. So the time complexity reduces to theta of n, just as a linked list. But this is like the absolute worst case, right? So if you can have a balanced binary search tree, then your insertion time is log n, and it turns out that any operation where your updates are frequent and people constantly probe you to give elements in a sorted order, then binary search tree is clearly the best data structure that you would use. Heaps are no good, arrays and linked lists, all of them are no good as opposed to a balanced binary search tree. But do remember that at its worst case, if it is not balanced, then the insertion time reduces to linear time. But if you can somehow balance the binary search tree probably after every k insertions, then you're good to go. Was that clear? Okay. We did a few terminology thing at the very beginning when we started binary trees. What is the difference between a balanced tree and a complete binary tree? Balanced binary tree and a complete binary tree. So you're complete and then you're balanced.
I don't know the difference. I know like complete is there are all the nodes are present at all the levels.
Correct. Every level has 2 to the power of the level value nodes. So balanced, I see different folks using different definition for balanced. Some people say that a binary tree is balanced as long as it is complete from 0 to d minus 1 level, where d is the maximum depth of the tree. There are other books which say that a tree is balanced if it is complete from 0 to d minus 2 nodes. And some people equate balanced with complete. I'd say balanced is something either this or this. As long as you have a tree which is, if it's complete, it's obviously balanced as well. But as long as you have a tree like this, this is still balanced, though this doesn't have a right kid. If you have one more level, this would still be height balanced according to few books if it is 0 to d minus 2 levels. For our purpose, it doesn't really matter that much if one of the levels have a few missing nodes, the last one and the last part 1. So we'll take that, we'll soften the requirement of a tree to be balanced and use this definition. Okay. So what are the different time complexities for different operations? So we have insertion, you have deletion, and you have search. What is the time complexity for all of these in a binary search tree? Insertion we already saw, log n. How about deletion? How long would it take to delete a certain node in a binary search tree? Log n. Correct. And now word search.
Search also login. Search
Okay.
and login.
Again, all of these is average case. Worst case, all of them can go to n time. The reason why it is log n is that if you have a balanced binary search tree like this, know that anytime you search for something, you start with the root node. Immediately you decide whether to go left or right. You never, if you take this left path, there is never a requirement for you to go to the right subtree. This entire thing you will never visit, which means these many number of nodes you will never visit, which is good, right? You don't have to go through all nodes or something. Again with this, once you're here, you decide whether to go left or right. If you decide to go on the right, then this node you will never visit. Or if there was a subtree here, you will never visit. So the number of nodes that you visit anytime you have to insert, delete or search is completely minimal, right? Unlike linked lists or arrays where you have to traverse through the whole thing. It doesn't really matter in this case. What if my search is unsuccessful? Let's say I'm searching for a key which is not present in a binary search tree. How long would it take for me to search? I have a binary search tree, a balanced one, and I'm searching for an element which is not present in a binary search tree. How long would it take? It would still be the same, correct? So this search, irrespective of whether an element is present or not, would still be the same, because once again when I come here, I still decide whether the element is potentially in the left subtree or the right subtree. And if I go to the left subtree, it is 100% guaranteed that this element, if it was present, could never have been in the right subtree. So it doesn't really matter whether an element is present or not present. Search would still yield you log n as long as the binary search tree is balanced. So looking at those time complexity, if insertion is log n for one node, so to build a complete search tree it would be n log n, right? And sorted order would still be n. Given the time complexity that we saw, binary search tree resembles a strikingly similar algorithm that you've seen in the past. It essentially has the exact same properties as that algorithm. Just by looking at the property on the way a search tree is structured, this is less than x, this is greater than x, less than or equal to x greater than x. Which other algorithm that you have learned in the past has a very similar property to binary search trees? Binary search. So binary search, the time complexity, yes, but in that case the array is already sorted. So it doesn't have this, because the array is sorted, then sure, it's less than or equal to greater than. But which other algorithm has this exact n log n property to construct? Which, there's something strikingly similar between this and another algorithm. Not really merge sort. Where does, but you're kind of getting closer, but merge sort doesn't really enforce this binary search tree rule. Quicksort, exactly. So quicksort is like the sister version of binary search trees, right? In quicksort, what you do is you pick a key element, and in your first iteration you put the key element in the array. You make no guarantees that this is sorted or this is sorted, but you know for sure that elements to the left of x must be lesser than x and elements to the right of x is greater than x. Similar to binary search tree, the property itself for every node, it doesn't care what these things are. It just says that this one should be less than or equal to and this one should be greater than. But that rule is applied to every node. So that is why you have the entire binary search tree property. But as far as this 1, 2, 3 nodes are concerned, this doesn't care anything about these, right? It just says that this should be less than or equal to and that should be greater than. But what makes a binary search tree is that that property is enforced onto every single node. So similarly, quicksort does this exact same thing, and that's why the time complexities match it strikingly. And quicksort and binary search trees have the exact conditions for worst case. What happens if quicksort gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We already saw that this feeding a binary search tree with elements in this order is extremely bad because you get a skewed binary tree, and with skewed binary tree you lose the log n part, it goes linear. So similarly, for a traditional quicksort where you pick the first element to be the key element, in your first iteration x is 1 now, all elements to the left of x must be lesser, which means there is nothing here, it's empty, and all elements to the right of x must be greater, which is 2, 3, 4, 5. So you completed one iteration and you achieved nothing, right? The array is in the exact same way it was, you didn't have to swap. And then quicksort says, okay, now I'm going to pick the next pivot element, and it picks 2. All elements to the left of 2, 1 is already sorted, to the greater of 2, 3, 4, 5, it's already there. So you're achieving nothing, and then quicksort, worst case, goes on to n square. Right? Just like this goes to linear time, this goes to n square time. So see how closely they match in the way the time complexity works and the way they function. So with quicksort, if you had this input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say that you have to give elements back in a sorted order, and most of the elements that are coming in is pretty much in a sorted order already, right? If you had this input and you were asked to pick a pivot element, the first bad step that we did, the incorrect step, was to just pick the first element, right? Are you guys aware of versions of quicksort where you can alter the performance and steer it back towards n log n if you had inputs in sorted order? Our incorrect step was just blindly taking the first element. What else can we do to improve the performance of quicksort? You want to pick something so that the number of elements on the left and the is almost equal to the number of elements on the right, so that it becomes balanced. In this case, it isn't balanced because the left is empty and right is full. Random order. So that is a brilliant answer. So as Chaitra said, random order. It's actually called randomized quicksort, and this guarantees n log n time. If you guys haven't read about it, you should. It belongs to a family of algorithms called randomized algorithms. What you essentially do is very simple. You just pick a random element and you make that element as the pivot. The chance of you faulting at every step and still picking only the elements like 1, 2, 3 becomes extremely low because you're randomizing it. And even if you do end up picking one bad case, in the entire overall process of sorting the array, you will still achieve n log n. There's a mathematical proof which says that if you pick the incorrect element at every step with a randomized quicksort, but you happen to pick a good element at one of these steps, at every other step you pick the most hopeless element, but you end up picking a good element in one of the steps, it's still, the time complexity goes to n log n, and it is better than always picking up the first element. We won't go into the mathematical proof, but if you do, Corman has an excellent proof on that. So we have to apply a very similar approach to our binary search trees as well. If we know our input in advance, all you have to do is to basically pick this element and make that as a root, right? If this was a order in which I got my binary search trees, if I make 3 as the root, and then 2 here, then 1 here, and then 4 here, and then 5 here, I've kind of height balanced it, right? There is no deeper levels. It is better than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what is this element called? in a sorted array, if I have to pick up the middle element, what is that element called, mathematically speaking?
In selections and yes, this is called pivot, right?
Yeah, so it's called a pivot element in quicksort, and it's also, you can say, the key or the root element of binary search tree. But forget about binary search tree and quicksort. What is the middle element called in a sorted array?
Median.
Median, exactly. So your task is to basically have the median element as the root of a binary search tree. Let's pretend you don't get this array in sorted order. You get it in a different order. But you get optimal performance. You can assure height balancedness of a binary search tree if you pretend to sort the array in your mind, irrespective of whether you get it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 4, 2, 3, 1, 5, irrespective of how it goes. In your mind, pretend to sort it, and you know that it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3 is the middle element. And if you always pick 3 as the root, and you know that these are all the elements that are going to come for your binary search tree, irrespective of whether 2 comes first, 4 comes first, 1 or 5, you still have a height balanced binary search tree. If 1 were to go first, then it would probably be like this, but it is still height balanced. So, and another way, instead of picking a random element for binary search trees, just like how we did for quicksort, would be to always find the median of all the elements that you have seen and construct my binary search tree. Unfortunately, finding the median means I have to sort my array, because median makes sense only for a sorted array, right? It is the middle element of a sorted array. And if my input data is not coming in sorted order, I'll have to sort it. The sorting that I did in my mind comes at an expense, and that sorting algorithms usually take n log n time. So if I were to sort it, finding the middle element is not a big deal. If I know the length of the array, all I have to do is n by 2 element, and that is the middle element. So that is constant time. But this guy eats up the most of my time, and it becomes n log n just to find out the root element. And then there is an additional process of constructing the binary search tree. So to get over this problem, there is an excellent algorithm. It's called median of median algorithms. Median of median. This guy finds out the median of an array, not a sorted array, of an array, because median of a sorted array is constant time. He finds out the median of an array in linear time. And that becomes excellent, right? We reduced it from n log n to n. This guy is sorting, this is sorting plus finding median. This guy finds out the median without sorting the array in linear time. So if you have access to this guy, let's pretend it's a magic function which somehow returns you the median of this array in linear time, then you can pick that as the pivot or your root element, and then you can go on constructing your binary search tree. This algorithm by itself is something that you guys should definitely study. It's a favorite question for most of your interviews. They basically ask you to find out the median of an huge array or a median of an array which is unsorted, and the most brute force answer that you guys would come up with is sort an array using the best sorting algorithm like quicksort, merge sort, which still gives you n log n time, and you find out the median. But this guy can do that in linear time. You guys should definitely look it up on the net and learn this. Huge favorite question for interviews. The basic idea of this is that to find out the median, just like how quicksort does, I don't really need to sort the entire array. If I choose to sort the entire array, it becomes extremely time consuming. But if I can find out the position of, if I can somehow establish where the middle element lies, I don't have to care about what comes to the left and what comes to the right. I know for sure that X is in the central part, okay? If it happens to be in the n by 2th position, n by second position, whatever. As long as I have this element put in the right place, I don't care whether this is sorted, that is sorted, because that is not the question I'm asking. I'm just asking you to give me the median. So that is what this algorithm focuses on. It doesn't go into the unnecessary details of sorting the left part, the right part. It just finds out where this guy goes in, finds out what the n by second element is. And if it can correctly position that element, then there you have the answer. And an interesting thing of this algorithm is that it doesn't necessarily have to work for the middle element. It can work on the kth element. So someone could ask you that you're given a huge array of integers. Tell me the second smallest number, or the 10th largest number, or the last but one number in a sorted array, or the fourth smallest number. So you can basically answer the kth largest and the kth smallest number with this approach. So extremely important. You guys should read about it. They also have a proof on why it is linear time. All of this, again, it solves a huge family of problems which would require you to sort in the first place. So if someone were to ask you to find out the second smallest number, you would do sort the array and then tell you the second smallest number. So sorting takes n log n. But yeah, definitely read about this. So there's a claim. If a key is not present in a binary search tree, and let's say I'm searching for a key and this key is not present, it's not present in my binary search tree. When I am searching for the key, I will traverse through a node whose key is the smallest, is the largest number just before the key. Let's say node's value. I don't want to use the key too many times and confuse it. Node's value, which is let me rephrase this. Losing words. Largest value smaller than the key, and I also traverse to the smallest value greater than the key. This is a little confusing. What I'm essentially saying is that if I'm searching for a key which you can assume is not present in a binary search tree, when I'm traversing through the nodes, I will 100% access a node which is just before that key, pretending that the key was in a binary search tree. The element that comes before it, which is its in-order predecessor, I'm going to access. And if this key was, let's pretend it was in the binary search tree, then I'm also going to access the in-order successor of that key. Is this true or not? Again, if you are sure that the key is not present in a binary search tree, while searching for this key, you are going to access a node which happens to be just before the key and happens to be just after the key, if at all there was a case that the key was present in a binary search tree. Is this claim true or not? Think about it and I'll be back in a minute. Any luck? Sorry, didn't get the question. So if I'm searching for a key which is not present in a binary search tree, is it true that in my journey of finding a key, I'm going to access the element that comes just before the key, pretending the key was present in a binary search tree, and I'm going to access the node just after the key, pretending that the key existed in the binary search tree?
That's true.
It is true. It is true, and you said it may come. When you say it may, then it's probably not true. That's true. Rakesh said it's true, but then he had a doubtful statement. It's true. Okay, so everyone is saying it's true. Let's take an example and try. Let's say my binary search tree is like this. And I'm searching for 5. The 5 is clearly not present in the binary search tree. The element that comes just before 5 is 4, and the element that comes just after 5 is 7, pretending 5 was in the binary search tree. So I start with the root node. 5 is greater than 3, so I go to the right. I go to 4. So I have already accessed the in-order predecessor. 5 is greater than 4, so I go to the right. Now I have accessed the in-order successor. 5 is lesser than 7, I go to the left, but it is null, and I say that the key is not present. So it is 100% true that if a key is not present in a binary search tree, you are going to access its in-order predecessor and successor, pretending that the key was actually present in a binary search tree. And this actually helps us answer a lot of questions. Most of the interview questions ask you to do this. They won't specify your data structure. So that is the most difficult part, is to actually find out which data structure can answer your question. But the question goes like this. You're given an array, and it's a big array, and I'm going to give you a search key. You need to tell me if a search key is present in the array or not. Okay, and it's an unsorted array. You're just given this, and you need to tell me if the search key is present in an array or not. If the key is present in an array, you need to return back the key value, which is the key itself. If the key is not present in an array, you need to find out the closest element to the key and return me back that number. So if this was the question, binary search tree fits in excellently with that problem. Because know that if a key was actually present, I would have returned it. But if a key is not present, I am accessing the element just before the key and just after the key. So once I have access to these two numbers, and if 5 was not present, the closest value to the key would be 4, since 4 is more closer to 5 than 7, and I could return 4. So this takes care of another popular interview question where people ask you to find out a key, and if it's not present, give me the next closest value. And remember that irrespective of whether a key is present in a binary search tree or not, this takes log n time. So you have essentially solved this problem in log n time, even if a key is not present, and you have answered these two questions. And it not only answers the closest, it gives you both. Someone can twist this question and say, find me this exact same thing, the element that comes before and element that comes after. So you can answer two questions just from this. The hardest part is to actually come to the conclusion that binary search tree is the data structure, your preferred data structure of choice to answer this question. That's the hardest part. But once you've already seen this problem, you know that binary search trees can be used for plenty more. Was this clear? So if I did not, okay, let's not go there. Okay, so if I had to solve this problem in a real binary search tree search, how would I modify the? I know we didn't code the search part, but I'm going to presume that you guys know it's one of those trivial parts where we are not going to delve in our talks. The search algorithm is pretty simple. You start with a root, and if as long as the root is not null, you see if the root's value is the same as key. If it is, you just return. Otherwise, you compare the key with the node value. If the key is greater than the node value, you make p as p equals p pointing to right. Otherwise, you say p equals p pointing to left, and you continue with the loop. So to answer my previous question of finding out the in-order predecessor and successor, you have to tweak it just a little. Anytime you go to the right, you have a global value called before, which is the before node. You update your before. Anytime you go to the left, you update your after. Right? Anytime you go to the right, it must be before, right? Because this is clearly, it comes before this element in a sorted order. And anytime you go to the left, this is after, right? Because this one is clearly greater than this node. So it's a very simple tweak. Your search, binary search tree search function, you just have to add two additions to remember your before and after. What if the key is present? Is that claim still true? Our claim started off saying that if a key is not present in a binary search tree, what if the key is present in a tree? What happens then?
You will still return the key, right? Because the key is not present. I mean, if you're writing the iterative one, you're talking about the binary search tree or the binary search?
Binary search tree. There's nothing to do with binary search. All of this is all trees. Yeah, so the key is returned, but what about my claim? I claim that I'm going to access the predecessor and the successor.
You can't get the predecessor, right? You can get the successor of it.
I cannot get the predecessor, but I can get the successor. How so? Same example, 3, 1, 2, 4, 7. Let's say I'm searching for 4. What do I get? The predecessor, the element that comes before 4 is 3. The element that comes after 4 is 7. I start with 3, which is my predecessor. Because I've accessed 3, this part is done. Then I move to 4, since 4 is greater than 3. I get 4 and I just return 4. So I never touch this part, right?
Yeah.
So if a key is present, I'm only going to access the predecessor. Why would I go to the successor? The successor is an element that comes after that. In my search process, it's a journey, right? I'm going to only visit nodes that comes before it. The moment I find it, my search process ends there. There is no need for me to jump to the next node and visit it anyway. So I'm not going to visit future nodes because I got what I needed much before. So I can't make that claim if a key is present. I can only access the predecessor then. Okay, so inserting in a binary search tree. It's still log n. What would be, just conceptually tell me how you would do insertion in a binary search tree. I have an existing binary search tree. I have to insert a new node so that the binary search tree property is still true. Conceptually, tell me how I would implement that in code.
You start from the root and then you move left or right based on the node's value.
Okay.
And your value to be inserted.
Okay.
And then when you have found the position, you just insert it there.
How do I know if I found a position?
to be inserted, that one or both of his children will be null.
Okay, so that is correct. So essentially, I'm just doing the same as searching, but this time whenever I encounter a null, that is a position where I will go and insert my node. So there are two variants of this. One question would be to search for an element, and if the element is present, you return the element. But if the element is not present, you go and insert it in a binary search tree. That is one form of insertion. The second form of insertion is that you insert an element irrespective of whether you find it or not. Which means if that node is already present, I'm still going to insert it. So duplicates are allowed in my binary search tree. The second one is more common because binary search tree does not impose any condition which says that duplicates are not allowed unless you explicitly impose that condition. So most of your insert functions for binary search tree handles duplicate. They just ask you to insert a node and you have to insert it irrespective of whether you find it or not. And the code for both of these is very simple. You just have to remove one of the conditions if you're allowed to have duplicates. And another claim. Any node that you insert, any new node that you insert in a binary search tree are all at the leaf level. True or not?
Yeah, it's true.
So you could never insert something, unlike B trees, or I don't know if B plus trees also do that, but insert something somewhere in the middle and shift. It becomes messy, right? Anytime you have to insert somewhere in the middle and it involves moving things up and down, moving branches up and down, it becomes messy. Binary search tree has this very nice property that all insertions that you do are at the leaf level, and it's very simple to attach things at a leaf. I have another claim. It is possible to have a binary search tree with exactly one leaf, okay? Exactly one leaf. Only if elements are inserted in an ascending or descending order. It's possible to have a binary search tree with exactly one leaf only if elements are fed to you in an ascending or descending order. True or false?
It's true. It'll be a skewed tree.
It is true that anytime I do this, I get this. But the claim is slightly different. It is saying that you have this one leaf property only if it is this order.
No, it's not true. If you have like 2, 3, 4, you'll have 2 leaves.
2, 3, 4.
No, like 3 is the root, 2 is the left child, and 4 is the right child.
So if I say 3, 2, 4, you mean?
Okay.
So if I say 3, 2, 4, then I have 2 leaves, right? So this claim is still true. It's saying that you will have one leaf only if elements are fed in ascending or descending order. And this is neither ascending nor descending, so I have 2 leaves.
Oh, it's fed, not traversal.
Yeah, it's fed. You're getting that in ascending or descending.
Okay, okay.
Is this claim still true or false?
Yeah, it's true.
This claim is false. And I want you guys to come up with an example where you will prove to me that you can have a binary search tree with exactly one leaf, even though the elements are not fed to you in an ascending or descending order. You can actually solve this with just 3 elements. It's a very
You take a negative number.
No, you don't need I mean, negative numbers don't really achieve anything, right? It's just a matter of whether it is lesser or greater. So while you can do it with negative elements, integers, you don't really need it. You can just do the same. Binary search tree doesn't really care if an element is negative or positive. It just enforces an order. Just take a very simple case with just 3 elements, 3 nodes. You can manipulate, just take 1, 2, 3 and manipulate it in an order where you will actually prove this claim to be wrong. So clearly 1, 2, 3 we are not interested in because it's ascending. 3 to 1 we are not interested because it's descending. What happens if I get 3, 1, 2? I get 3, I get 1. Then what? Right? 1 leaf. It's exactly 1 leaf, and 3, 1, 2 is neither ascending nor descending. 2, 1, 3, sure. 2 is here. 2, 1, 3 is not really going to work because 2 is there, 1 is to the left and 3 goes to the right. So this has 2 leaves. Notice the very first element becomes the root. So you have to be careful to plan it out. But do you guys follow why this makes this claim false?
Yeah.
Okay. What are the number of key comparisons I have to do to retrieve a record or an element? Let's say the element is present in a binary search tree. Oh, 8, 12, 5, 9, 1. Let's say I'm looking for 1. How many key comparisons do I have to do? Or how many node comparisons do I need to do to get to 1?
3.
I have to do 3, right? It's like Rakesh said, it's log n. But the exact number would be 1, 2, and then 3. So if my level is 0, 1, 2, essentially the number of key comparisons that you do equals the level of that node plus 1. So since this is at level 2, so I make 3, which is 2 plus 1. That's another interesting property that might come in handy when you're solving few problems. So hold on to that. The next more common operation that you do is deletion. This is probably one of the trickiest part of binary search trees. Insertion and search are very simple. This is the tricky part. We won't code it. Also, although I have been told that a lot of interview questions, at least a couple of years back, would involve deleting a node from a binary search tree, and they're looking for correctness to make sure that you go through all possible scenarios and your code works for all test cases. We won't go into the code because it's just something that you can find in a book, but we'll just go over it conceptually. You guys know how deletion works? Just conceptually, let's not delve into code. Okay, Rakesh says yes. How does it work, Rakesh?
same as searching,
Same as searching, okay?
but you delete the entire subtree if you delete a root.
I delete the entire subtree.
Yeah,
If I have
from
this,
that particular node.
if I have to delete 3, I cannot delete an entire tree, right? My task is to only delete 3. I cannot say 3 connects the left and right subtree, so I'm just going to cut out everything that comes below 3. Well, that's not going to work. If you remember from your
Put the in order predecessor when you delete an element.
Put the in order predecessor. So do this, go and move this up. That would work. People usually don't prefer that approach of taking something and shifting it that way, because that shifting stuff is a costly operation for one, and secondly, when you shift things, when you take a branch and move it, you might end up increasing the depth of the tree, and you don't want that. When you're deleting a node, it doesn't make sense for you to increase the height of the tree in any way, and we've already talked about this before in today's class, that we don't want to increase the height of a tree in any way. We want to make it as balanced as possible, right? So the way to think about it is that there are 3 cases. Node has 0 kids, it has 1 kid, and it has 2 kids. These 2 are the very simple ones. This is complex. Node has 0 kids. Let's take 1. It's a leaf node, it has no kids. To delete 1, there's nothing I have to do. I just go and disconnect this from the parent. Right? I don't have to worry about anything else. That is good. If I have to delete a node with 1 kid, let's take 12, it has 9. To delete that, all I have to do is to promote the kid to a parent level. So 9 goes to 12's spot, and I'm done. Still simple. I just have to swap them. 2 kids is slightly complex because I have to pick between these 2. So when a node has 2 kids, let's go back to my original tree. It had 2, 1, it's had 12, 9. So to do this, what I do is to find out the in-order successor of that node. Let's say I have to delete 3 because this guy has two kids. I find out the in-order successor. The in-order successor of 3 is 9. Instead of moving things around, I just swap the values. I make this 9 and this as 3. I just swap the value. I don't make any change to the node itself. I just swap the value. Note that at this point I am not done with my deletion yet. It's still there. But at this point I have broken the binary search rule property. I now have a node which is lesser than 9, but it is on the right subtree. But that's okay. We are not done with our processing. So once I do this, I now call delete on this node. I now go and say delete this node. When I do that, it reduces to one of these. Know that an in-order successor of an element is the leftmost value of the right subtree, right? In this case, if this was 3 and this was 9, we'll go back. Originally it was like this, right? The in-order successor is the leftmost node of the right subtree. This is the right subtree and the leftmost node is 9. And then I go and swap. This has to be either a leaf or it can have at most 1 kid. Why? If it is not a leaf, if it had two kids, right? Let's say this had two kids. Then if it had another kid here, a left kid, then that would become the in-order successor, not this node itself. So it is impossible for this guy to have two kids. It can either be a leaf or it can have at most one kid. Right? For example, let's say 10 was present. 10 would be here. But 9 is still the in-order successor. But it is impossible for this guy to have two kids. So you will, when you swap these, you are guaranteed never to come back to the same situation of having two kids. And when you have to delete 3, it boils down to one of this scenario. In this case, if I have to delete 3, it is the case of 0 kid. I just detach it from the parent. Very simple. And I am left with this. Binary search tree property now still holds. 12 is greater than 9, 2 and 1 are less than 9, and everything is good. Was that clear? Okay. People might ask you to delete a node, and when they say delete a node, delete the actual node. In this case, we never deleted the actual node. The actual node is still present. It just has a different value of 9. Some interviewers might ask you to delete a node, like really delete a node. When they say delete 3, it means delete the node 3 completely. In that case, the algorithm becomes more complex. You can't just swap out values. I think it's the question itself adds little value, because when there's a better technique, I wouldn't understand why someone would force you to do it another way. But if they do, there are ways. In this case, you have to, for the two kid scenario, you will have to come up with a better approach. Either save the content of a tree and bring it back, or make a new node, find the in-order successor, delete it, and insert that node here and update your trees. It's significantly complex than this. Personally, I would never ask such questions, but if they do, then remember that there is a way out. But we're not going to talk about that in this class. The next one is again another cliched question that people ask in interviews, is to find out the lowest common ancestor of two nodes in a binary search tree. We won't write code because it's one of those cliched questions, but explain to me in concept how you would find out the LCA. First, let's start with an example. Tell me what the LCA is in English for two nodes that I ask you. What is the lowest common ancestor of 1 and 3? Lowest common ancestor is 2, correct. LCA of 3 and 9. Eight, correct, because the only common ancestor is 8. LCA of 1 and 2. One and 2 is 8. Why is it 8? This is the tricky part. People can answer this, but what you answer to this changes the way you code. So the lowest common ancestor for a parent and a kid is the parent itself. So in this case it would be 2. So when you code the solution for this, you have to be very careful to take this as a test case. because most of the answers deal with this, but you want to be careful to get that as well. So how would you code this out? Conceptually speaking, how would I write a code for this?
Check for leaves.
Check for leaves. I don't know what that means.
On the both the left and right side.
So if I am given 1 and 3, I start with 8 because that's what I have access to. I am here. What do I do?
Go left.
Why? What decided that I should go left?
It's just a normal travel field.
Okay, 1. So what? So I have a function which takes 1 and 3. So what do I compare with 8? 1 or 3 or both 1 and 3?
Both.
Okay, and since both of them are lesser, I go left. Then I come to 2. I'm here. Now what?
And again compare 1 and 3, and 1 goes left and 3 goes right.
Okay.
Later you fix 1 and 3, so 2 will be the common ancestor of 1 and 3.
So I'm at 2. Say that again. What do I do at 2?
You compare again 1
Okay.
and 3.
Now I have a split. Now I cannot just go to one side. So what do I do?
Whenever you have a split and you fix the node to the parent, then that parent will be the common ancestor of its children.
What do you mean by fix the node to the parent?
Yeah, you traverse left, right?
He means to update the least common ancestor to that parent.
So you actually had 8 as a LCA before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
Yes.
2 will get updated. It'll get updated to 2.
Okay. So I have updated it, and then where do I go? Left or right?
Compare with 1,
Okay.
you go left. When you compare with 3, you go right. There are 2 comparisons. Since you are giving 2 variables, 2 integers.
Why do I need to traverse down more? Don't I already have my answer here? We said that LCA of 1 and 3 is 2, and I'm at that node.
You are constructing the tree, right?
I'm not constructing a tree. I have a tree. The question is to find out the lowest common ancestor of 2 nodes. This tree is already given to me.
Okay, then there is no need to traverse. Like you can just compare it.
Okay, I'm at 2 and I compare, and
That will be the updated value.
okay. You don't really need to store the updated value at all, because anytime I have a complete unbiased decision to go either to the left or right, we know that node can never be the LCA. Right? That split, only when you get a split, you know that the moment there's a split, you know that is the answer. So I start with 8. Since 1 and 3 are both less than 8, I know that 8 is definitely not the answer. Then I go to 2. I compare 1 and 3 with 2. There's a split. 2 has to be the answer. Same with 3 and 9. I start with here. Immediately I get a split. So I know that 8 must be the answer. Let's start with 1 and 2. I go to 8. 1 and 2 are both less than 8. So I go down a path because I know 8 can never be the answer. Then I go to 2. So with this 2, the way you code it is that you check for are both elements less than the current node? No, because 2 is not less than 2. Are both elements greater than the current node? No, because 2 is not greater than 2. So I check for if both to the left or else if both to the right. Else whatever node I am in must be the correct answer. I don't check for that split thing anyway. If it is not completely left or completely right, then the current node must be the answer. If you add an additional condition which says if it is not completely left, go to the left. If it's not completely right, go to the right. Else if you have a split, then go to this. You will never answer this question. You will never get an answer this way. So in your code, you have an if, else, if, and then you have an else. And that would give you 2 as a correct answer. Was that clear?
Yeah.
What is the time complexity to find out the LCA?
Log n.
Log n, correct. The reason why it is log n is that once again at every node we take a decision whether to go left or right, never both. The moment we go to the left, we can cut down the right subtree completely. So finding out the LCA of two nodes in a binary search tree is a pretty cliched question, and it's pretty simple. A more interesting question is finding out the LCA of two nodes in a binary tree, which is not necessarily a binary search tree. You cannot apply the same logic because you have no kind of relationships between kids or between a parent and a kid. It is a slightly more complex solution. We did not talk about it in our previous classes, but I want you guys to read about it, and we'll talk about this in our next class if you guys can't figure it out yourself. But this one is definitely more challenging, and this is a problem that you'll probably want to focus on. Our next question again is very cliched, pretty simple. You have to determine if your binary tree is a binary search tree. How would you do this?
You check at every node that root is greater than the left child and smaller than the right child.
For every node, check that the parent is greater than the left side and greater than the right side.
Recursively.
Is that what you said, Vipin?
That's what I meant.
Okay. Let's say I have this. Is this a binary search tree?
No.
So I go for 3. 3 is greater than 2, less than 5. So I pass the check. Then I go for 2. 2 is greater than 1 and less than 4. Correct. But it still violated my binary search tree property because 4 is greater than 3, but it is still on the left subtree.
Can you do a traversal? Use threads.
Use threads.
Yeah, 4 to 3 and 4 is greater than 3, so it's not possible.
See, threads are bad because I'm altering the. I need to only do a read only operation to find out if a tree is a binary search tree, and now you're making me edit by adding threads. So how else? What else can I do? Take the in-order traversal and check if it's in ascending order. Good, we can do that. So the in-order traversal would be for this would be 1, 2, 4, 3, 5. And then I store it in an array and I check if it is sorted. It's clearly not sorted, so it is not a binary search tree. We can do a little bit better. We can cut down on storing the sorted value and checking if it is sorted. In this case, there's an additional space complexity because I'm storing the in-order traversal of a tree. And let's say this tree was really big. Now it poses a problem because I have to store the content of a tree again. And there's an additional expense of checking if this array is sorted. So we can do a little bit better, but you are on the right path. What else can I do?
So you
Similar to
check
what
the
Chaitra said.
predecessor and the successor for every node.
For every node, I find out my predecessor and successor. It becomes even worse if I were to do that for every node, because it's not simple to find out my predecessor and successor that way. It's not a constant time operation to find out the predecessor and successor. What Chaitra said is almost there. There was an unnecessary complexity of storing it, but you can get away with not storing it and still check if it is sorted.
You can check whether the elements, instead of storing it, the next element should be greater than its previous element.
Perfect. So instead of saying the next element, because that makes it a little bit complex where I have to go to the future, all I have to do is to make sure that the current element is greater than the previous element I have seen so far. And the previous element I have anyway seen. So all I have to do is to just, and if it is greater, then you're good. You're essentially checking if it is sorted or not, but one element at a time. So I start with 1. I do an in-order traversal, by the way. So that's the way we do it. My previous element I have nothing yet. So 1, I go to the next one. 2 is greater than 1. So keep going. I go to 4. 4 is greater than 2. So keep going. I go to 3. 3 should have been greater than 4, but it is not. So return false. So this way I'm not storing in-order traversal in any way, and I'm checking for sortedness even without going through the entire array. I just do it one element at a time during my in-order traversal. What would be the time complexity of this approach?
Theta of n.
Correct. It would be theta of n because I'm essentially doing an in-order traversal. So it's theta of n. Our next question basically gives you a sorted array and asks you to construct a balanced binary search tree out of it. You're given a sorted array. I don't know why I said arrays. You're given a sorted array, and then you have to construct a balanced binary search tree out of it. We kind of already dealt with how we
Median
go.
approach.
Yeah, check for the middle element.
Okay, check for the middle element and do what?
That will be the root.
Okay. And
The
Keep applying this property for the rest of the array. I mean, like,
the middle of the left portion of the middle will be the left subtree.
yeah,
Correct.
left child.
correct. So essentially you do that recursively. You find out the middle element of the sorted array and that becomes the root. And we know that anything before that should be on the left subtree. So we go to the left half of the array and we apply the same logic. And we go to the right half of the array and we apply the same logic. What is the time complexity of this approach if I were to construct a binary search tree? Log n. How is it log n? So your n is in terms of the number of elements in an array. Why would it be log n? N is the number of elements in an array, which is basically the number of elements in a binary search tree.
Still be n, right?
Correct. So this approach would be n. If it is log n, then that means you have not constructed the tree correctly, which means you have only seen a subset of these nodes. You are missing out on nodes in the tree. So you definitely have to do one complete pass to get back your tree. What is the time complexity to construct a binary search tree in general? If you were given n elements fed to you, they're not sorted or anything, they just fed to you. What would be the time complexity to construct a binary search tree?
That would be log n.
To construct the entire tree.
But you're going at n log n. Yeah, n log n. You're going at depth n, yeah.
It's n log n because each insertion takes log n time and I have to insert n such elements, so it's n log n. So how is it that we went from here to order of n time with this?
It was already sorted.
Doesn't matter, right? So what if it is sorted? So if I were to feed you a sorted array, one element at a time, how long would it take? It would actually be worse, right? It would become n square. Because if I feed you one element at a time and that array, that element is already sorted, then your insertion time is no longer log n, it is theta of n, and I do that for n elements, so it becomes n square. So irrespective of that, why is it that I am able to construct this in n time, but this takes this n log n and n square?
Because the log n part, like, you're only selecting.
Insertion is O of 1 in that.
How is it? You're correct, it is O of 1. But why? How is it O of 1 there, but it's either O of n or theta of log, theta of n or theta of log n in this case?
Here you have to traverse for the tree for putting the element.
Okay.
Here it's not like that.
Correct.
They're searching for the median, so the log n part is done there only.
Correct. Excellent. So in this case, you have this additional extra overhead of thinking where that element goes. But in this case, that relationship on where everything should go is already established. All you need to do is to basically connect the links. And that connecting the link part is just basically constant time. So it goes down to theta of n time. So things are good with binary search trees if you have the input data elements in advance. But if it comes one step at a time, then it goes a little wonky. So we'll change this problem, and instead of a sorted array, now you are given a sorted linked list. How would you approach this, and what would be the time complexity to build a binary search tree from here? So you're given a sorted linked list, which means you have something like 1, 2, 3, something like that.
It would be more than n.
It would be more than n. Why?
Or you have to find the middle element.
Okay. And unlike our arrays where we can access the middle element in theta of 1 time, a constant time, I can't do that in a linked list because you don't have random access to elements. So how long does it take to find out the middle element of a linked list, of a sorted linked list?
O of n.
Yeah. So the middle element part takes theta of n by 2, not, which is basically theta of n, because we ignore the constant. So what would be the time complexity to construct a balanced binary search tree from this?
N square.
Why n square?
2.
For every middle node that you choose to insert in the tree, you'll have to traverse to the whole linked list, right?
Okay, and
That's why it will be n square.
you took a big leap to go from accessing middle element which takes n to n square.
No, the size will be halved. So it will be n by 2. Again, n by 4.
It's still n though. Even if it is n by 8, n by 16, since we ignore the constant, it's still n. So that part I can understand why it takes n to find out the middle element. But why would it take n square to construct my tree?
For n elements, you traverse for n times to find the middle element.
For n elements, I traverse n time to find out the middle element.
You have to fix the position of each element, right?
So for every element that I have, I traverse down to find out the middle element. But remember that you're cutting down your problem space every time.
Yeah, that's what I told you. But you told it's a constant, you can ignore it.
That is true. But I know for a fact if I write down the recurrence relation for this, my master's theorem has been, I don't know, you guys should probably refresh me on this. So if I divide my space, I'm essentially making this problem space by 2, cutting it down by half. And there are two things, one for left and one for right. And finding out the middle element itself takes n time, theta of n, which is c of n. How would the master's theorem for this work out? Do you guys know? I know there's that a times n by b. I always forget what each one translates to. I don't think this comes to n square though. Do you guys remember your master's theorem?
No.
Okay, so we'll hold on to this recurrence relation. And I'm actually pretty confused whether it is n square or something else. I know for sure it's worse than n because clearly the middle element is different. But as far as I can remember, master's theorem doesn't go to n square for this. But we'll hold on to this recurrence relation and let me look at it and I'll come back in our next class. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's n square. That's a good point. For every element that you find, you need to find out the middle element, which should have been n square. Okay, time complexity apart, how would I go about constructing the search tree for this? For everything, if I try to find the middle element, it's definitely worse than n. Is there a way I can bring it down to linear time? Bring it down to how I was with my sorted arrays. So it should be n log n. Chaitra says it's n log n. Okay. I'll get could be n log n, but that theorem, the formula itself didn't look like n square. But Rakesh had an interesting point. So I'll definitely read about it. If you guys can figure it out faster than me, then shoot me an email. Is there a way I can get it down to n? It's either n square or n log n based on to what we've already talked about. But is there a way I can bring it down to n? The most time consuming operation is finding out the middle element, right? What if I completely cut that out?
The first time when you traverse a linked list, you will know the middle element.
Okay.
Right. Then you will also know the size of the linked list.
Okay.
So the next time you can just traverse to the middle element directly.
How?
By dividing a number by 2.
Nope. I can't do that with linked list, right?
You have to traverse for the half linked list.
So even if I know what the n by second element is, how do I directly go there? If I were to access 3 directly,
you have to traverse from first.
So again it becomes n. N by 2, n by 4 is all n, right? The moment I start traversing from the first element to go to n by 2 or n by 4 or n by 8, it's of the order of n. Unlike in arrays, if I have to go to the middle element, all I have to do is to say a of n by 2, and this takes constant time because I don't have to go from a of 1, a of 2, a of 3. But with the linked list, every time I need to go access a middle element, I reset my pointer to the first element and go to n by 2, n by 4, n by 8. So which means my middle element operation is still taking order of n time. What would happen if I completely cut down that process of finding a middle element? Let's say I don't even care. I'm going to give you a balanced binary search tree, but I'm not going to do it by finding the middle element. Is there a way you can do that? So if you had a tree like this, in our array, the way we did was a top-down approach, right? We find out the middle element and then we get this part, we construct this node first. Then we go to the left subtree, find out the middle element, then this node gets constructed. Then 2 gets constructed. Similarly, we do for 8. So it's a top-down approach. What if I can do this bottom-up? Which means I don't know what the middle element is, but I will construct 2. Then as and when I keep going to the next one, I construct 1 and then I establish this link. Then I construct 3, then I establish this link. Instead of doing 1, 2, I do 2, 1. It will still be height balanced. And that way, I don't have to access a middle element. I have to access it in a linear fashion. So I would access 1, then I would access 2, then I would access 3. Let's take a simple example of 1, 2, 3. With the array approach, the construction would be like this. I would construct 2 first, then I would construct 1, then I would construct 3. That would be the order. In a linked list approach, what if I do this? I construct 1, then I increase the pointer, then I construct 2 and I establish this link, then I go to 3, then I establish this link. If I can somehow do the constructions like this instead of in this order, I can still maintain linear time because I'm accessing the linked list one node at a time and I traverse to the entire list, which is theta of n time, and I still end up getting the same balanced binary search tree. The code for this is actually very trivial. Instead of doing a top-down approach in your recursion, you just swap the calls and make it a bottom-up approach. And every time if you're done processing one node, you increment the pointer to point to the next node. So it's an assignment problem for you guys. Write the code for sorted arrays and using that same code, tweak it. It's just a matter of incrementing the pointer to a linked list and then swapping calls so that you do a bottom-up approach, and you can just do that in linear time. And the reason why it is linear time is that I'm completely eliminating the problem of finding out the middle element in a linked list. I want you guys to work on this problem. We'll begin our next week's class by writing the code for this and then we'll proceed. I think next week's class will be the last on binary search trees, and we'll probably talk about more interesting questions that especially big companies like Google, Microsoft asks. and then we'll try to wrap up on trees, and then we'll probably move to bit manipulation topics in our subsequent classes. Do you guys have any questions on today's class?
Is there any inbuilt function to swap two numbers? Phi function.
Inbuilt function to swap numbers? How? Like a swap? Like swap A and B?
Yeah.
I don't think there are inbuilt
This-
functions, but
Yeah, this was the question asked to me. I told I don't know.
so inbuilt functions in what programming language?
C.
I don't think C has a swap function. If you were to, then there are ways. You can use temporary variables, you can use XOR, you can use arithmetic operations, but I don't think there's an inbuilt swap function. But then again, it has been a decade since I've programmed in C. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there's a swap function.
Okay.
Vipin, did you figure out the linked list question that you asked me the last time?
No, I got the book. I'm just reading through it still. So
What was the question again? And I remember it was code list, but
it's in linked list. You have to find the middle element in, I think, theta of n time.
okay. So did you actually buy that book?
No PDF. I don't know.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, you can find out the middle element in theta of n.
Elaborate, Rakesh.
Initialize two counters.
Yeah.
Every time, for every operation,
Mhm.
you increment one counter twice and the other counter once.
Perfect.
So when you traverse, then the pointer point for incremented by one time will point to the middle element.
Exactly. You just have two pointers. When one pointer moves twice as fast as the second one, when the fast pointer reaches the end, you know for sure that the first pointer must have moved exactly half the distance, which is half of the node. So you can tweak that question in different ways. People can ask you, find out the 1/3 or 1/4. All you have to do is to make sure that the pointer moves 3 times as fast or 4 times as fast or k times as fast as your slow pointer. So once you have that, you have the kth smallest, kth largest node of a linked list. Yeah, definitely go through the list questions that I asked since we skipped talking about lists completely. There were definitely a couple of questions which were pretty interesting. There are a few other questions that we did not talk about in our binary trees, and we will not talk about also. Once we finish the trees topic, I'm going to send you the list of all those questions so that you can work on it on your own time. And that's about it. If there are no more questions, I'm going to schedule our class for next week. Do you guys have any internals next week?
No, we have a fest actually.
So does that mean no class?
I don't know.
Okay, let me email Navneet and I'm going to check with him if all of you. When is the fest?
It's from 19th to 23rd.
Okay.